my sister calls out of the blue. I look at my phone. I'm like, why is my sister calling me after midnight? This is so bizarre. So anyway, I pick up the phone and she proceeds to tell me, see you. She just had brain surgery. They went to the ball game and they never went home.
Welcome to Inspire Me with Jay. This is a podcast to inspire, uplift, show forth the love of God, and help usher in the spiritual awakening. Welcome to Inspire Me with Jay. I'm your host, Jay Spillers. I have a special guest today, Jana. How are you, Jana?
Good, thanks. Hi, Jay. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Jana Brody, and I'm an artist and an author. I live in Santa Barbara, California. I have 3 kids in 3 different states right now, and I work for nonprofits and the arts. Like I mentioned, I do arts education, and I recently wrote a memoir about my mother's story, and I believe that's why you invited me on.
Yeah, you said that you had some experiences with your mother as she was passing. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what happened?
Sure. It's not as in depth as some of your other guests that you've had on, but I did want to share because it was kind of a bizarre story. And I also believe, not just in her passing, but the whole situation around her death had some very, spiritual or insightful, or I would say miraculous things that were connected to it. So would that be appropriate to talk about, Jay?
Sure.
Okay. Well, again, the title of my book is Sit Behind the Nets. It's a memoir about a mother killed by a foul ball at a Major League Baseball game. So that title is pretty interesting in itself. My mom went to the Dodger game August 25th, 5 years ago, 2018. 9th inning, got hit by a foul ball and went to the hospital for brain hemorrhage and died from it. So it was pretty bizarre, the whole thing, that out of 50,000 people at the Dodger Stadium, the ball found my mom. So that in itself I think is kind of bizarre. Again, surrounding that story is my parents had block tickets. It's not something, they went to many, many games. Block tickets are not quite season tickets, but they're every 10th game. So it's quite a few games. They lived in the San Fernando Valley, and it was like their date night. So they went to the game with their best friends from college, from UCLA days. And this one game, my dad's friend said, my wife's not feeling so great. Why don't you take the tickets? So that game, my father invited his brother and his sister-in-law. And of all the games the whole season, that was the game his brother was there with him to experience this crazy incident of a foul ball injury. So the foul ball came, 9th inning, hit my mom straight in the head, actually bounced off and hit my uncle that was sitting right behind him. And that's how fast the velocity of the ball came. They asked her, "Are you okay?" And she said no. And immediately they rushed her off into the ambulance. So again, my uncle was able to be there to drive the car while my dad could go in the ambulance. And I thought that was pretty miraculous in itself, that of all the games, my dad's brother was there, to be there for him. So that just kind of started what was going on. And so that night I was out. It was actually my wedding anniversary, and I just gotten back from a party. It was late at night and it was winding down. My sister calls out of the blue. I look at my phone. I'm like, why is my sister calling me after midnight? This is so bizarre. So anyway, I pick up the phone and she proceeds to tell me that my mother is in critical, what's it called? She's in ICU. She just had brain surgery. They went to the ball game and they never went home. and my mouth just fell open, and I'm like, how could this be? What happened? And I was 2 hours away in Santa Barbara, so this happened in Los Angeles. And she said, she's had surgery. It's late at night. Don't come. Just stay till the Santa Barbara till the morning, and we'll figure out the next step. And I was still in shock. I couldn't believe that actually, took place. So I believed her, and I hung up the phone, and I decided to not go. I tried, curled up into a ball, and you start crying. And the next thing you know, I thought was pretty interesting, and to your listeners and to you, Jay, is I got a raging migraine headache. And it was like pounding, nausea. I couldn't sleep. And I never get headaches. I never get migraines. My mom, on the other hand, had a lifelong history of having migraines and headaches. So I didn't think much of it. But, after the fact, I was like, wow, I really believe I was channeling her pain at that time. So it was pretty intense, and I didn't sleep the whole night. And again, not having migraines in the past, it was pretty odd and awful and pretty intense. So again, I don't know if that's along the lines of the things that you're looking to hear about, but that was just two of the oddities that kind of happened in the beginning. Did you have any?
So, yeah. So what happened in terms of, because you said like she came to you at some point in her spirit, or?
Yeah. So then, as the following story continues, thanks for asking. Again, I didn't sleep that night. The migraine was awful. I got in the car. I drove down there. It was at the USC hospital, and again, she was in ICU, and you only you had to like wait in the waiting room and be let in, and she was all hooked up, and she couldn't breathe on her own. She had machines all over her, so they were monitoring the blood swelling, and there eventually, after 2-3 days, there was nowhere for the blood to go. It just kept expanding and expanding, and we had a trauma nurse come in, a palliative nurse come in, and share with us how there was no way she could live after this, and it was time to have her breathe on her own and then pass on her own. So it was pretty dramatic. It was pretty sad. We had, it was pretty amazing. And the fact that she was in California, in LA, and all 3 of her children lived close by. All 7 of her grandchildren were in town, and some, her brother and my father's brother. So like her whole family was able to travel to be for the end. We decided it was going to be that night, 9:00 on the 29th of, or the 28th of August. And so we all gathered, we all got together. It was a beautiful moment, and we said goodbye. We had a rabbi come and say some prayers, and then they proceeded to tell us that now that we're going to have her breathe on her own, it's going to be not so pleasant. There could be gurgling, there could be gasping, you probably don't want to be in the room. And we don't know how short or how long the end of life process is after this. So the women all decided to leave right away. The men decided, maybe we'll stay and just be with her. And a couple of them really thought it was important. So we left. We came, we had a couple cars. We went back to my family home where my mom and dad lived. My mom and dad were married for 59 years. So, and this was the same week as her 79th birthday, my wedding anniversary. I mean, it was a time of celebration. That same week, they had gone out to celebrate her birthday. They'd gone out to celebrate the anniversary. And we have pictures of that. And it was all so beautiful that, my dad had to have all these wonderful memories up until that time. So then it was time, like I said, we all went home. I went to bed. We were up for pretty much 2 or 3 days solid. So I just crashed. I went to bed, and I did hear the door open where the guys had come back. They did not stay long. They stayed about an hour. She was holding her own. And the doctor said, why don't you just go home and get some sleep? So they did. So we all crashed hard. We went to bed. And the next thing I know, my eyes pop open at 6 a.m. And I said to myself, why in the world am I waking up? I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I'm cranky. I want to be asleep right now. But I could, for the life of me, I was wide awake. From a dead sleep, I came to wide awake. And this is, when I believe she came to me. There was no horns honking outside to wake me up. There was no, alarms going off. The house was dead silent. My eyes popped open. I woke. I was, curious what was happening. 10 minutes later or less, the phone rings and I hear my father wail. They're telling her that your mom has just passed. So again, I feel like she came to me during the pain. I experienced her pain, and then I feel like she woke me up to say goodbye and to be there for my father and to know that this was the end, that she had made it through the whole night, breathing on her own. She let the whole family sleep, and then she let us, she passed in the morning, that we could all wake up and deal with it. But again, I feel like, she did this beautiful favor for us. And it was pretty mysterious that that she woke me up. So again, it's not as dramatic as some of your other stories that you've heard, but again, there's so many, I think, believe odd circumstances around this tragic death that it gives me comfort. And
Have you ever wondered whether the Bible was compatible with a near-death experience? In my book, Heaven's Truth, the parallels between the Bible and the near-death experience, your faith will be strengthened while you support this channel. In Heaven's Truth, you will learn about near-death experiences and other similar experiences in the Bible. Support for the Bible contained in NDEs, a central theme that runs through both the Bible and NDEs, how the NDE brings the Bible to life for these modern times, evidence for both the Bible and the NDE, and much more. Great book. Spillers does an excellent job weaving the relationship between NDEs and the scriptures. 5 stars on Amazon, available on Amazon. So you said that there was some miracles that proceeded, didn't you?
well, I believe that miraculous. I believe things were miraculous. Like, why out of that game, one game out of their whole entire, season, my father's brother was there with him. He was there to be in the hospital after brain surgery of his wife and be there for his brother. I'm sure the best friend would have too, but I think that's pretty bizarre, and I think it's pretty miraculous. Like I said, out of 50,000 people, the ball found my mom. My brother, my uncle was there to be with my dad. All these little things kind of came into place. The hospital that they picked, the closest hospital was USC Hospital, and my father is a adamant UCLA alum and fan. So he was angry. He said, "Why aren't you taking me to UCLA, taking her to UCLA Medical, where I feel more comfortable?" They took him to the USC Hospital, where he could vent his anger. He's like, this hospital did, he could work through the anger of what was happening and kind of blame it on USC, where if it was at UCLA, it would have been everything would have been fine per se. So just little funny things like that happen along the way that I think, led to healing and led to a safer, safer passing and a more, beautiful connection to the end, again, just, I think that they were something special, that all these little details helped the process along. What do you think?
Did you were you visited with her after this event, or like have you been in contact with her since then, like visitation dreams or anything like
Yeah,
that?
I did have a visitation dream, and it took a long time, a couple years. It was after this whole thing that because the incident was so tragic and so bizarre, and it was not in the news. The MLB and the Dodgers, it was like hush hush. Nobody said longtime fan passed away last night. It was like quiet. So every time I would tell people the story, they would say, what, did the Dodgers do anything, or, what happened? How come we didn't hear about this? So that got me thinking. And that's why I reached out to ESPN 6 months later. And I said, what's going on here? Why isn't this incident documented in the world, in the news? Or, people need to know that foul balls are dangerous and you need to sit behind the nets. So ESPN wrote my story, and then I got inundated by journalists, and I was telling my story many, many times. I was interviewed on TV and the radio and the news, and I never properly got to have a lot of grieving time, because I believe that I became desensitized to the story because I had to say it so many times, and I was getting the message out, and I was trying to make sure that my mom's death was not in vain. I didn't want other people to get injured or die from this, common occurrence. It turns out to be a common occurrence. There's like 1,800 injuries in baseball every year. So that's a lot. So I didn't really get to grieve. I became this advocate for expanded nets in the Major League Baseball. And thankfully, a year after her passing, the major leagues did decide to extend the nets from the dugouts all the way to the foul poles. And in her case, the netting behind home plate was extended upward to help people in the future. So I was feeling really great, and I felt like I accomplished something. I feel like, this simple, beautiful person did not die in vain. And then somebody said to me, this story sounds like it, you should write it down. You made change, and positive thing came from using your voice for good. So that's when I embarked on writing my book. And during the book, that's when all of the memories came flooding back. And I could visualize everything about her. I could visualize everything, all the details. I am an artist. So, colors and sensations and things, came out in my writing. But my brother and my sister and my dad were like, wow, like, how, you're not even a writer, that's not your profession. How are you possibly writing this book? But I believe, she was coming to me in my dreams, and she was helping me recall the stories and the vivid memories and the things from my childhood I shared in the book, things. Another, kind of interesting thing is that my mom and dad, my dad was a wrestling professor and a wrestling coach at Pierce College, and they used to do wrestling exchanges throughout their, with Osaka, and this specifically a family called the Morikawas. And that year following her death in 2019, me and my oldest daughter went to Osaka, Japan to visit this family. And when I walked into the mother, the person I was staying with was my contemporary, and his parents were friends with my parents. So I was visiting his mother, and I opened the door, and right at the front entrance of this home in Osaka, Japan, was this wrestling sculpture that was quite large. I would say like 1.5 by 1.5 feet, that my mother had painted and given them maybe 30 years before. So I had no idea this woman had this sculpture. This is the same sculpture that sits on my mantle in my father's house. And that just like set the mood, and I felt her energy. And this woman always, had a connection. For 30 years, she put this sculpture, right at the prominent entrance of her home. Then she proceeded to take me upstairs to show me the room that I stayed in 30 years later, or when I was a 19-year-old. And right, her husband had passed, so she had a shrine set up in this room with a Japanese gong and some quiet incense and things. And she said, this is the how I connected with my husband who has passed. And wouldn't it be great, if you can connect with your mother and your grandmother, because my daughter was there as an ancestor. And my daughter kind of froze for a minute, and she looked at her watch and she just said, Mom, this today is August 29th. This is the exact day that Bubby, your mom, Linda Goldblum, had passed away 1 year ago. And here we were. We were in Japan for 2 weeks. We could have visited this mother any day in those 2 weeks. Randomly, we visited her on the 29th, and here we had this gong to ring. And so she instructed us to sit down and to just say, hello, mother, hello, grandmother, hello, Bubby, and ring the gong of this Japanese memorial. And it was so moving and it was so powerful. And then my daughter sat down and she rang the gong. And it was, I believe, again, what are the odds that we were there at that exact moment with that exact kind of experience? In a 2-week span, we were there in that moment. And she then proceeded to open the closet and bring out some clothes that my mother had gifted her. And we just had all these beautiful memories. But literally, this woman hadn't seen my mom for, maybe 40 years, because I was already 19 when I came to Japan. I was only 10 when they came to America. So these beautiful connections I had across the world. And again, I thought that was pretty miraculous, that we didn't plan it. We didn't realize it. We were just there at that moment on August 29th to share that special, kind of peace with her and have a connection. So little things like that throughout the whole experience, I think, in my perspective, were kind of miraculous.
Are you looking for a devotional that will radically transform your walk with Christ and revolutionize the world at the same time? Check out my latest book, Walk as Children of the Light. This book focuses on everything you need to be fully equipped and discipled in Christ: prayer, meditation, scripture, love, gratitude, and much, much more. Available on Amazon, 5-star rating.
Then she came to you in dreams. Did you see her? Did you talk to her? Did you know you were in a dream?
The one time was a dream, and she was there, and she was like a spectator of the situation tonight. But I do remember vividly saying, wow, this is the first dream I had. My mom came and was part of it, and it was really special. One thing I did share with you is I did reach out to a medium, and I was able to have a medium session with somebody and connect with my mother that way. And I thought it was pretty amazing and pretty right on. And through the medium, I could speak with my mom. I could ask her questions. The medium would share funny. The medium was there with her, and then I was able to speak through her. And that was a pretty fabulous experience. Would you like to learn?
Has this changed? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so through that experience, the woman, didn't know me we met through a networking group. And so I joined her services. And she said, right when her mom, she said, your mom is coming to me, and she's dancing around the room, and she's actually patting her head, and she's telling me, I'm fine. I'm okay. The pain is gone. The bleeding's gone. I went in a calm, simple way in my death, and don't worry. I was 79 and I lived a good life, but it was sweet because the medium was visualizing her and saying, this little lady is running around the room dancing and patting her head to show you that head injury is no longer and she's in peace. So that was really cute. And then we went on to, ask questions. And she said, everything is fine. It was my time. Don't, fret, that kind of thing. And I had asked her, is it okay to write the book about you? It's actually my memoir because it's my perception of her passing and everything that happened. And she said the words, the medium said, she said the words right on. So I was curious. I said, well, did she say right on, like WRIT, or was she saying right on, like do what you need to do? She said, it's not about her. It was more about me and my healing and getting the word out. So all these little bits and pieces, gave me strength to finish the book and to make this happen. I had asked her about, my relationship with my husband, and things were, it was COVID and it was a struggling time. And the medium said, I see your mom's hands going out in, back in, and out in, back in, almost like, a figure 8 or a universe sign. And she says things are going to get rough, but then you're going to come back together. Things are going to get rough and come back together. So that was a beautiful, specific message that my mom was telling me, like, stick it out. It is a really tough time, and, things should come back together. And anyway, it was fun to have that medium, and it really did make me feel good. It let me know she was in peace, and let me know that what I was, moving forward on my healing process, was okay to write the book and to share her story and all that. So I think all of these things, made it a healing process in a beautiful way.
Have you had any spiritual transformation since the event? Like, how have you changed spiritually from maybe where you were? Or have you changed spiritually at all?
I just believe that things are meant to be in their time. And I've come, you can't control things. And I believe that, things are going to happen for a reason. And I just believe you have to make the most of it and use your voice for good. That's kind of my spiritual mantra. Like, I'm just a person in the world, but if I can help other people from getting injured, or God forbid, dying from a foul ball, it was my calling to actually share this story with the world. Otherwise, it would have been hush hush. It would have been covered up, and nothing really came from it. So my, kind of epiphany, or my aha moment was, yes, it's important to speak out. You need to tell stories. You need to share, and make things better in this world by using your voice for good. I mean, the fact that they actually extended the nets to the foul poles and made change in the MLB world, that's huge. Unfortunately, in the minor league baseball world, they are still not having adequate netting, and they had a mandate that they're going to give it to 2025 for all the stadiums to be finished. So to me, that's kind of crazy, because they know that there's dangers and that keep happening, and they're letting it go on for 2 more years. So that's kind of upsetting. But I think that's my spiritual strength, was to write this story, to plow through, to, make change in the world. And I feel really proud about that.
Please like, subscribe to this channel, and share everywhere. Thank you.
Has the MLB reached out to you, or the Dodgers, or anything?
No, there's something called the baseball rule, or the baseball law. And on the back of the ticket, it says enter at your own risk. So they are completely covered from any lawsuits or any, kind of litigation. All the people that unfortunately, I'm in a Facebook group called Injured Players of Major League Foul Balls. And within this group, we share, we talk, we support each other, and they have major medical bills ongoing throughout their life, and there's no compensation because MLB is a big billion-dollar company protected by this baseball law. That's kind of sad.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, they never reached out and offered their condolence or anything. Not saying we're at fault, but just offering a condolence or anything.
Well, finally, when the news broke, they had to give a statement. So they finally said, long time, we're sad, give condolences, longtime fan Linda Goldblum, in the newspaper. But sadly, we wanted something nicer, like personal, like maybe a little plaque on the chair, or rest in peace, Linda Goldblum, a longtime fan on the Jumbotron. I mean, something publicly, so she was a longtime fan. It was a fluke, it was an accident, but people need to know, that there's also dangers. So yeah, I wish that they would have done a little bit more. I mean, we're talking today on the 30th. So yesterday was the 5-year anniversary of her passing. And just Sunday, the LA Times, Bill Plaschke, who's an amazing journalist and sports journalist, put out a really beautiful article commemorating the 5th-year anniversary of her passing. And he reached out to to the Dodgers at this 5-year anniversary, and they did not have a comment for the article. So again, they just want to keep it hush hush.
Yeah, I know a couple years ago they had a minor league team around here, and we used to go watch. But at the stadium where the people watched was so small that it seemed like the net was pretty much covering everything, because we were always behind the net.
Oh,
And we'd
that's
hear the ball sometimes go. Yeah, we hear the ball come up and hit there was like a metal part on the top, and we hear the ball hit sometimes, and they get fouls and things like that. But yeah, I'd never even thought about it. That
Where are
I'm
you located, Jay?
I'm in Anaconda, Montana. It was in Butte, which is a little bit bigger. They had a minor league team a couple years ago, but then they ended up folding after one season. But we used to like to go to the games there and just watch. It was,
Well, I'm
it
glad
was
you
real
did.
small and intimate. So go ahead.
Well, that's good news. A lot of the other parks didn't have adequate netting. And a lot of people, like I said in my Facebook group, are from the minor leagues, because it's the same players, right? They have the same strength, the same balls. It's
Mhm.
just, smaller stadiums. So those balls are coming everywhere. And then there's also spring
Mhm.
training stadiums that need to be, properly netted, and even colleges, big players with big power too. So again, I feel really good about getting the word out. One other thing is kind of interesting. Your listeners might know the book called A Prayer for Owen Meany. It was a very famous John Irving book, and they made a movie out of it. And the opening scene of the John Irving A Prayer for Owen Meany novel is a little league boy hits a ball. He never hits the ball. They always, he always misses. He's like a little scrawny guy with a funny voice. His name is Owen Meany, and he never hits the ball. There's one game they said, swing, Owen, swing. He swings, hits the ball, and it went in the stands and hit his best friend's mother, and she died instantly. So the opening of the book was like Owen Meany finding meaning in why did this tragic thing happen? And this woman who he adored and his best friend adored, why did this happen? And so this, not real story takes you through the whole process of Owen finding meaning and spirituality in this kind of situation. So I mentioned it in my book because mine was a real life story. And even in the introduction, my husband said, Owen Meany, it took him this whole life to find meaning in that tragic ending. But in my situation, I was able to find meaning in only 2 years. I was able to write the book and get the story out and help advocate for larger nets. So that was just another kind of quirky thing. If you read that book, you'll get the story.
Is your book available pretty much anywhere, or Amazon, different
Yeah, thank you for
locations?
asking. It is. It's available on Amazon.com books. It's also on Barnes and Noble books. It's also, I reached out to Judy Bloom. She was in the news recently, and she has a bookstore in Florida Keys, and you can get it through her website. I also have a website, janabrody.com. It's just my name, and you can see more of my interviews and my and these talks that I've had, and you can get the book through that. But I appreciate you asking, and yeah, I would love, for if people did go ahead and read it, if they can, give me their feedback, because a lot of people have been saying it is a healing story. It talks about my mom and memories, and so it's kind of sweet, and then it kind of shifts into the articles and the interviews and the MLB pieces and all the little things that come together. But I do think that it was, I appreciate you having me on, and I know it's not the big trauma story that you've had connections, but I do believe in my heart that all these little miraculous things were meant to be. And like I said, her death was not in vain, and I was able to make MLB a little bit safer.
Yeah, that's great. So where can people reach out to you if they'd like to reach out to you? Or
yeah, again, JanaBrody.com. So Jana Brody is my name, janabrody.com. I have a website, my email's there, and they could give me feedback or anything. Reach out to me that way, and I would love to connect with people.
is there like one final word you like to leave with the audience before we close?
I would just like to say, speak your mind, use your voice for good. And if you are going to go to the games, major league, minor league, anything, buy your ticket and sit behind the net and be safe.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on today. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Jay. I appreciate it. I appreciate letting me tell my story.
I spent several years of my life stressed, anxious, and depressed. I needed to find something that would make my life work. For me, that was meditation. With meditation, I found the peace of mind that I was looking for. I found the happiness, and I found a way to improve every area of my life, my emotional life, my spiritual life, my relationships. I was able to discover things about myself. I can give you the tools to meditate. I will walk you through the process and hold your hand. Whether you're a beginner to meditation who's never meditated, or whether you're someone who's tried meditation and it just never seemed to work, we can make it work. Meditation is something that everyone can do, and I can show you how. Check out my course on meditation.